What are vibrational frequencies and how can you raise your inner coherent state? Thank you for joining. This is Professor Matt. Today we're going to talk about brain waves. We're going to talk about the sciences of spirituality. I've, of course, got my notes pulled up over here. And we're going to be talking about the esoteric truths. Is it good to always be high vibes? Do you always want to be high vibrational? What does that even really mean? Does that just mean being positive? Does that just mean staying in a heightened state of conscious awareness? What does high vibration mean from the practical standpoint? We're going to get into it. I hope that you guys enjoy the video. First, real quick shout out. If you want to learn more about information like this and get into the esoteric space, try Psycosmos University. That is my online school. I just added a new course on herbology and herbalism, and I will be adding more courses over the coming weeks. I've been adding courses on this for about a year now. If that doesn't interest you, then you can check out my new AI tool called Astraya. It has inner alchemical timing, astrology calculations. You can talk to it, literally actually have a conversation with it through voice inputs and outputs. It's a really cool tool. A lot of people are signing up and enjoying it. So I'll talk about those things a little bit later. But first, let's get into the real science of what you guys clicked on the video for today. The science of brainwaves. So this is actually from NeuroHealth, which is a pretty decent website. It talks about mainly the 5 states of frequencies that our brain puts out. And, you know, there are actually some really theoretical, hypothetical papers that I've seen that says that there could be even more, you know, frequencies that we're not really fully even aware of because we don't even understand fully the scope of frequency and vibration to the fullest degree, right? This would be very similar of like how for the longest time in human history, a lot of the ancient European, African, Asian maps didn't really even include the New World, you know, the Americas. It's kind of similar to that. It's like, you know, we're working based off of what we know so far. Maybe someday the theoretical explorer, you know, the theoretical Christopher Columbus of brainwaves will go out and discover the new stuff, which, by the way, Christopher Columbus was not even really who he was. So there's a rabbit hole you could go down if you so choose to. But today we really are going to be talking about the science of this. Now, I have a couple of different studies here, but first I want to get into Matt's, you know, Professor Matt's layer of this information. If you watched my previous video this past week on microtubules and the quantum science of Christ consciousness and what that really means, basically we know from the scientific community that not only the deepest aspect of quantum physics being Planck scale, but also some of the deepest aspects of the physical processing units of our minds basically work off of polarity spectrums. It is like having an abacus. You know, you guys remember what an abacus is. It's like a very large abacus. So if you don't know what that is, I should have pulled up a picture. It's basically like a giant counter, right? And you've got a bunch of switches that either go yes or no, right? They go left or right, yes or no. And our brains have probably, not even an exaggeration, probably trillions of these yes or no switches. And it's all about a bunch of stuff, right? Like it's very multi-layered. A lot of things are very interconnected. And this is basically how we exert our consciousness, is we have all of these checks and balances within our brain, these yes or no little switches. And this is why you find people struggle with polarity, right? They struggle with spectrum. Take politics as an example. You really don't find a lot of very highly intelligent centrist people. And if you know a lot of those, it's probably because you're friends with them and you don't want to go on either the far right or the far left. Both far right and far left are terrible for very different reasons, but they're ultimately the same reason, which is that they're too extreme. And I'm just going to, you know, give you a flat out honest truth. Anytime that you're on an extreme, unless it is really, really factually driven, which politics is not, unfortunately. We all know this. Everybody, you know, really exaggerates the truth when it comes to politics. And it's always biased, and it's always just trying to prove your point. They both do bad things, both sides. And the reality is that only the highly intelligent people are centrist. Only honestly, the most enlightened and intelligent people will take that middle path, right? Because it's about seeing everything from all sides, but it's also not being a fence sitter. So taking the middle path does not mean being a fence sitter. Taking the middle path, it means understanding the philosophical concept of verisimilitude. Now, verisimilitude has a separate meaning, but in the context of philosophy, it's a really great word, which theoretically would mean some ideas are better than others, basically. And that's true, right? Like you can, for example, if you take a concept like murder, all right, something really negative, most people are going to say, hey, that's bad. But then you throw in self-defense in the situation and it becomes a completely different story. Murder itself, the intention, right, of wanting to do somebody harm is bad. But the intention of wanting to defend yourself and also doing harm in order to defend yourself is generally seen as good. So again, it's like context is really key here. And that's where all those millions and billions of micro switches occur in our brain to create consciousness. But if you can, for the most part, see the middle path and be decisive at the same time to say, this is the right way, and then move forward in a leadership kind of way, that's how you really know you're enlightened. If you can do that for your own life, you can teach other people how to do that in their lives, then everything becomes better. Now, we also understand the concept of toroidal energy. Okay, so if you were unaware, which most of you are not, but if you're new, welcome to the channel. Everything that has some form of life or conscious awareness falls under this very beautiful geometric pattern. Trees, human beings, DNA, apples, pine cones, everything in nature essentially that has DNA within it is going to take this shape. Even water cycles and forms vortexes, whirlpools, tornadoes. Everything that houses the capacity or the potentiality for life must spiral. It is a very interesting and important concept to like fully understand. So human beings have this energy too. And when people talk about, you got to be high vibes, man, they're really talking about manipulating the structure of this energy field. Now, how do we do that? And is that even possible? Absolutely. I'm going to show you guys some case studies. So here's one: heart rate variability biofeedback in a global study of the most common coherent frequencies and the impact of emotional states, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, it's a global study of biofeedback that found that positive emotions were associated with higher stable frequencies within the heart. All right. This is also HeartMath. HeartMath does a lot of very interesting studies. I recommend that if you're interested in those types of quantum mechanics from a human standpoint, you should check HeartMath out. They have some pretty cool stuff. The HeartMath Institute research shows that different emotional states produce distinct heart rhythm patterns, and positive or coherent heart patterns are linked to better cognitive and emotional functioning. It just makes sense. If you can have the proper frequency and vibration within your body, your health is also going to be better too. And a lot of this is mind over matter, right? It's about your consciousness, your subconscious, how you're able to manipulate those things, get them on the proper track to stay moving forward. That's key, essentially. So, and we're going to get into the practical of like how do you do that in a second here, but I just kind of want to give you guys the sciences, possible mechanisms for the effects of sound vibration on human health. So this one explored how vibration itself found that low frequencies versus high frequencies created different effects on the body. When you have low frequency, okay, now here's the gotcha, right? This is how a lot of these spiritual narcissists online that are just really good looking and they have really no skills or talents, but they understand that there's a market for the spiritual community. They tap into it and they try to make a profit off of it, but they have no idea. They've maybe been doing yoga and meditation for a few years and they just like getting high off in the woods with rich people. Trust me, I've done it. So I know what it looks like, and I also know what a fraud looks like too. And most of the time, if you're listening to these people, they're like, you got to be high vibes, man. Like you got to raise your vibration. They really don't understand what they're talking about. Okay, it's really a balance. All right. So what this found was that not that low frequencies were bad per se. Now low frequencies can definitely put you in a lower emotional state. Take hip hop and rap music, for example. A lot of people are now very keenly aware, which, by the way, I used to listen to a lot of hip hop and rap when I was in college. And those were probably my most degenerate years, where I was drinking and smoking and partying it up with everybody else, because it makes you very low frequency. This is, of course, going back 10 years ago, but it makes you very low frequency. It makes you wind down, right? Because when you're in those college years, you have a lot of energy. Your body's able, because of sexuality blossoming and everything else, your body is able to house large amounts of energy. And so, kids, young people find ways in which they can kind of discard or deal with that energy, because there's so much in it. And then as you get older and your body's not as good at making energy anymore, you seek ways to stay high vibes, higher energy, because it's harder for your body to do so. When you're in your prime, in those teen to early 20s, mid 20s years, maybe even going up to 30 for some people, that is where people experiment with the drinking, the smoking, the drugs, a lot of the sex and the things that are normally considered lower vibration, right? And we're gonna, again, I'm gonna get into the differences here in a second, but basically the practices are always lower and in the earlier stages, and that's because you're acclimating to being a human being in the real world. And then as you get older, it's like your body really fiends for high vibes. And this is why, like, older people love to be around younger people, because, like, you get like baby boomers with their grandkids, for example, or like older grandparents with their grandkids. The people who are in the baby boomer era right now, who are like, probably 80, they love to be around youth, because the youth kind of balances the energy out. Young kids have a lot of energy, and they like the elderly, as long as they're nice, and the kids aren't annoying, right? In a perfect world, they like to balance each other out, and that's because the elderly have a lot of wisdom, but they have very little energy, whereas the children have a lot of energy but very little wisdom, right? So there's an exchange there. The wisdom is much more of the earthly practicality, and the energy is like quantum, right? Because children are very, very quantum. So another really great study, emotional classification based on brain waves, found a correlation between emotion, brain waves, theta waves, gamma waves, all those with different emotions. Also, their focus, meditation, and spiritual conscious awareness, right? So this is a study which is really cool. It bridges the gaps between, hey, it is actually true that when you're in different frequencies, you're also in different emotional states, right? So there is a connection here. And then I would say, what, we got like two more? One more? Oh, one more. And this one is a narrative review of mood and mindfulness found that exposure to certain environmental vibrations like background noise, low pitch versus high pitch, etc., impacted mood and anxiety. So, long story short, the science is here, okay? This quantum energy that we understand as frequency, which, by the way, you are enamored in, all right? We are saturated in this, right? Cell phone towers, 5G, electromagnetic radiation, solar bursts, Schumann resonance, and all these types of things, right? Music, really anything that can affect and impact us is going to. So it's not just not a big deal, right? You'll get teenagers, like these little smarty pants atheists, and they're like, I can listen to hip hop, I can smoke my vape pen, I can watch horror films and Stranger Things and all these weird Netflix TV shows that are just brainwashy. It's not that big a deal, is what they'll say. That is like the most beautiful cop out that the institutions really love selling the kids. It's not that big a deal, man. And then they're 40 and they're miserable and they don't have any success or future ahead of them because it wasn't ever a big deal. So they just never consumed anything. When people are in search of that, it's funny. It's like people grow up, right? They grow up, and what's funny about growing up is the stuff that you used to like, you don't like anymore. And there's some caveats to that, right? Like there's some stuff that's nostalgic or whatever. I still, I grew up with Pokemon, and I still think it's kind of cool. I think it's cool to see it become like the number one media brand. And it's about magic, and it's about archetypes, and it's like, it's kind of interesting. It's about friendship too. It's about love and friendship and kindness, and fighting the battles that you need to fight when you need to fight them, so to speak. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot of positivity there. There's also a lot of negativity. It impacts people. It brainwashes people. People are, stealing stuff and buying up all those cards and everything. It's kind of like nuts the way that it has taken over the minds of my generation. But I know why. It's because they don't understand the deeper esoteric lore. And even the kids that do think, and I say kids like speaking people my age because I call them kids, because even the people who do think they know what the stories are about have no clue. They just came out with a game, and I watched one guy talk about it, and it's like all of the esoteric stuff goes right over their head. The whole thing was about evolution and humanity and everything else, and I thought that the story seemed like it was pretty cool. But as I mentioned, it's got such a stranglehold on people, and that has to do with like egregores, so people feeding energy into concepts. Like Pokemon's a brand, so when we house energy and we feed it into concepts, think of church, temple, mosque, think of government, politics, think of anything. When you're feeding energy into this idea of what something is supposed to be, it kind of almost takes on its own frequency itself, and once you get inundated in it, it's like brainwashing, right? And it takes control over people, and it is almost like some form of possession. But we do it for everything. Labubus, those things got popular over the summer. People are looking to pull their money into something that matters. It's all very much financial psychology. We're in a huge, massive economic bubble, massive levels of inflation. Instead of being able to save up and buy a house, young people are buying these things because it gives them happiness in short bursts, because buying a home or having a family seems so far out of reach. And it does for my generation. It absolutely does. That's not us being complaining or exaggeratory. The world's in a shitter right now, and there's no way unless you have a rich parent for you to be able to create that reality for yourself. And even the friends I have that have really good jobs have to rely on their parents to some degree, have to for something, and I don't mean just familially, I mean financially. So that's all from frequency and vibratory brainwashing, which they did in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 50s. They've been doing this systemically to the Western world for a very long time, and this is where we've essentially ended up. So vibration, let's get into what vibration versus frequency is, okay? Vibration in physical terms is a periodic back and forth motion of particles from an equilibrium state. This would essentially be your heartbeat. Okay, so let me go back to the Taurus field guy here. Okay, this one's not bad, but So your heart, okay, is a pump, and your brain is a pump. In fact, all 7 chakras are essentially pumps. They're vortexes. I know a lot of people are now like, they're not pumps, they're vortexes. Whatever. Like, everybody's got to come up with some brand new freaking thing so they can feel special, okay? Energy comes down and up through the ionosphere and the Earth's grounded I would say magnetosphere. Okay, so it's like you've got ethereal energy coming down into the brain, and you've got energy going out of the feet, out of the head, right, circulating through the body. And we know this as scientific fact. We've measured this. Our brains give off like an electromagnetic signal. Our whole body does. Our feet are very magnetic. So your heart and your brain talk to each other every second. Every time your heart beats, your heart is sending blood through the whole body, and really your heart is sending energy out in all directions, just like this. And this is energetically and also physically. So imagine the blood flow also has to go to the extremities and everything else. Well, the heart then pumps a signal back up to the brain, in which the brain then flexes and pumps a signal back down into the heart. And that's really what your heartbeat is. Your brain is also flexing a little tiny bit, and it helps circulate cerebrospinal fluid and all the other endocrine and other fluids that are related in the brain and the body, okay? So this is a symbiotic relationship. This is through and through, the head and the body work together in order to promote this. Now, what the difference here between frequency and vibration is like this. Vibration is I guess you could say, the periodic back and forth between the heart and the mind. Frequency, however, is the number of oscillations or vibrations per unit in time. So when someone says frequency of emotion, they are using metaphorical language, but referencing the idea of how fast or slow, or how ordered or disordered an internal oscillatory system is. So frequency describes how fast or how many cycles within a given time, whereas vibration often describes the motion or quality of oscillation, including amplitude, coherence, and regularity. So in this analogy, okay, a wave that's high amplitude but chaotic, high vibration, in the sense of energy, is low coherence. And a steady, smooth wave is high coherence or harmonized frequency. So these two things are separate and they play into each other scientifically. So I want you to think of it like, your vibration, okay? Your vibration is essentially the strength of the communication between your heart and your brain, creating your soul. Whereas your frequency is more created through your spirit, which is the energy within the body, which is at the base center of your celiac ganglion, which is your solar plexus, which takes in all the energy from the very core center and feeds it up into the heart and the brain space. So in other words, and now also keep in mind too that emotions control these things essentially. Physical body controls these things too. So your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions essentially control both vibration and frequency. And by vibration being higher, this doesn't mean that you have like a faster heartbeat. It basically means you have a stronger heartbeat. All right. It's almost as if like the frequency is how you're measuring the vibration, so to speak, and you want to be balanced in both vibration and frequency. Now, why is that? Because of a few reasons. One, when you balance your vibration, okay, you are harmonizing more with the universe. When you can get the entire ebb and flow of your body in a harmonizing way with the universe, then your body can be put into better states for, healing or spiritual consciousness or whatever. You're basically the vibration and getting the vibration on a balancing point. Higher vibration will mean that you're taking in more energy from the ionosphere, from the heavens essentially, and lower vibration means that you're going to be taking more energy from the earth. One would be called meditation or higher consciousness. One would be called grounding, relaxation, rest, reflection. Okay, so you need both of those states. Now, frequency is like basically the easiest way to explain frequency is through emotion. Like when you're really happy, your frequency like gets really, really high. When you're really sad, your frequency gets really low. Okay, that's more of an emotional kind of perspective. However, and this is not like the most perfect explanation. I'm just kind of trying to give you guys all these details to make reference of it. However, for frequency, you can be high frequency by doing something like oscillating, right? Like a lot, right? So high frequency would be something like exercise. Low frequency would be something like rest and grounding. Okay, so vibration is essentially your soul's energetic signature. That is something that you want to keep stable. You want to find the middle path to your vibration, whereas frequency is going to change each and every day. Wake up in the morning, you're like super groggy and tired. Let's say you didn't get a lot of sleep. That was like me this past week because the Schumann was just crazy. The frequency from out there in the stars with the sun was crazy. So my body was taking a little bit of punishment from that because it was so highly intense, right? So it was like draining me of energy. Either that or it was like overloading me maybe. And the overload also caused, the body not to be able to hold it, so it drained it out, right? Either way, that's kind of like the analogy. So you wake up, you're super groggy and you're like, I really want some coffee. So you go and you make some coffee and you drink it. And then all of a sudden the caffeine kicks in, which, be responsible with your caffeine intake. But the caffeine kicks in and all of a sudden you start to oscillate a little bit faster. What does caffeine do? It makes your heart beat faster, doesn't it? Right? So you take that coffee, you drink the coffee, and it starts to make your heart beat faster. All right? That's exactly what I'm talking about, going from low frequency to high frequency. Now, Can you get really good restful sleep while you're high frequency? No, no. So vibration is more of like an elevated state, and frequency is more of like the experience within the state. And so if you're too high vibes all the time, your body is like constantly processing high frequency states. This happens to you when you fast for like more than a few days, right? Or even more than a day, right? You start to feel like super lightheaded, super high. That's good if you're trying to seek spiritual enlightenment. If you're trying to get a spouse or make money, that's not good. Okay, you actually need your vibration to be lower, because you need to be able to combat other people. You need to be able to be charismatic. You need to be able to negotiate. Sometimes you go in business. I'm thinking like big high league business. You want to make a shit ton of money, like you want to work Wall Street, like I did for a period of time. You got to be low vibration, low frequency. You got to work. It's not about being spiritual. None of those people go to church. Not a single one. Not that they went to the bar religiously at 5 p.m. 501, but I didn't know anybody who was spiritual, right? Because it's a difference, and that's why those people tend to have loose morals. That's why I saw a lot of drugs and drinking at 11 o'clock in the morning and a bunch of bad stuff that I wouldn't consider positive. That's the real reality of it. So it's a balance of sorts. When you're in your younger years, it's actually good to experiment with the low frequency, low vibration, because you got to learn how to work. You got to learn how to make money. You got to learn how to conversate with people. Again, it's like when you would watch reality TV shows, or you watch those old videos of people go. I mean, people I guess just don't go to the club anymore or anything like that, which is probably a good thing. But back in my day, 10 years ago, everybody was always going to the club and going partying and blah blah blah. I guess COVID maybe killed that, but that is like super low frequency, right? It's a lot of people laughing and cheering and whatever, but the demons come out. The darkness of the night. The women are all dressed scantily, right? Like everybody knows what the women and the men are trying to do. They're trying to get some sex out there. They're trying to get laid. So that's low frequency, low vibration, and that's actually how it comes out too. If you're looking for sex, you're looking for make out sessions, humping sessions, all that stuff. You're low frequency, low vibe, right? And that's exactly in the part of the body where that stuff would come out. Whereas the top is more for like the spiritual love and connectivity, godly family stuff like that, right? Like you don't want to fuck your family, like seriously, like think about it. Like why? why are there people who do that? Like again, it's low frequency, low vibration, right? But when you're with your normal person, with your family, you don't want. I mean, it's not just genetic. It's also because of the state of awareness of energy. Like you're like, that's not for the family. That's for my partner who's not a part of my family, because I don't want to do that, right? Like you see how it's silly. It's so silly, but when you wrap your head around it in a way of seeing things from vibration and frequency, you start to understand the entire spectrum of the world. So, with that being said, right? Here are the practical steps on how you can apply that. And actually, this is actually how cults work. All right, so fair warning. In cults, they will create something called this, like an emotional guidance scale. Scientology, Theosophy, what's the other crazy kooky one? Mormonism. A lot of these really, and yeah, I'm calling people out. I don't care. A lot of these really interesting groups, and you can find happiness in those groups. It's just that a lot of them, because they don't have the whole scope of all the information, a lot of the time there are bad actors in those groups, and they are blackmail and manipulation and stuff like that. So the emotional guidance scales, which are very common, this one I think is more of a psychological one. Abraham Hicks. Okay, so he's more of a psychologist, so I actually do like this scale. I use this even in my own practice, and I have in the past, because I think this one does a really good job. But you'll see very, very, very many similar ones in cults, because again, they've got to sprinkle in the truth to sell you on the lie. So the truth is that we do have an emotional scale, and it is based off of frequency. The middle point would be where this one connects to this one. All right, but as you'll notice, there's 1 through 7 emotions over here on the left, the high frequency ones, and there's like another 14 or so on the right hand side. That means there's double the amount of lower frequency emotions than there are higher frequency emotions. And this is where you're going to find your seven deadly sins. This is where you're going to find your seven holy virtues. This is where most people live, because you're talking about 1/3 of the people on the earth are high frequency and 2/3 are low frequency. And the reality of it is that's how it will always be. In the apocalypse or Ragnarok or the Revelations, however you want to kind of signify it, the belief essentially is that more people from this group in the lower field will be forced to turn to the higher field through awakening, and whoever is left in that lower field will remain here because God only wants these people. So if you are a Christian, for example, and you're like, oh, faith in Jesus alone is going to save me, you're totally dead wrong. Totally dead wrong. When Jesus Christ said, only through me you can get through to the Father, he didn't mean belief in him alone. He meant adoption of his belief system. He meant practicing what you preach. So if you are still feeling any of these, you can be rest assured that the kingdom of heaven is far outside of your grasp. And that's unfortunately true both here on earth and in heaven. So my recommendation is you have to fight these lower energies. And instead of selling you on a multi-$1,000 package, you can very easily join Psycosmos University, which starts at about $29 a month. It's actually just $29 a month. We've got 59 members in here. We're growing steadily. If that doesn't interest you, I've got an AI app that can also help you work through psychological problems. That starts at $15 a month. You can go and read all about it at the lowest. And if you want the advanced astrology system, it's $33 a month. So at the end of the day, for about $30 a month at the most, okay, I'm giving this to people. You could do this for a whole year and pay $300, and most people spend more on a television. So, and you'll learn way more through my programs than you will television. So the practical standpoints here, okay, for understanding your emotions are as follows. Assess your current waveform. Okay, so it's like the best visualization technique is through a beach or through a body of water. Okay, that's going to be your best visualization technique. Go into a space. We all have at least one memory of a good water-based memory. It could have even been just something like a water park with your family, a beach, a lake, a national park, a river or a creek that you used to go to when you were a kid, whatever. A pond, whatever the case might be. Think back to one of those water-based areas that brings you a sense of relief and joy and comfort. Go back to that state and try to tap into what your base root energy is, your vibration, your soul. Okay, you're tapping into your soul, and you want to kind of imagine your soul is rippling out waves, and you want to see how chaotic those waves are. This is a great affirmation technique that I teach people. And you want to ripple those waves out of your body and see what they are. Are they chaotic? Is it like a whirlwind of emotion? Are you in a storm? Are you in a hurricane? Or is it peaceful, right? Figure out where you lie on one of these types of emotional scales. And then from there, you have to incorporate the physical action to retrain the subconscious and subconscious energies, which control your frequency and your vibration. But if you want to control your soul's vibration, you first have to control your frequency. Because your frequency fluctuates every day, every week, every month, every year, right? We get seasonal depression. We get menstrual and ovulation cycles, sacred secretion, inner alchemical cycles. Our cat dies, our dog dies, our mom dies, our dad dies, or we get a promotion or blah, blah, blah. Like good things, bad things happen. And that's more controlling the frequency of the amplitude and everything else. But really, you don't want those highs and lows. This is like the gambler, the addict, the sex craver, right? You want flowing. You want flowing like a serpent, okay? Like a dolphin, however you want to see it. You want flowing like this. You don't want this, because those highs are great, but those lows are terrible. You don't want that. You want middle path. You don't want to go so high and so low, because And now, in the beginning stages of your life, most of you guys watching, you've already done this. You've already done this. So you've already gained the experience. That's all about experience. Here's the middle point, and you're going outside of the scope of experience, straying away from the middle point through exceedingly high highs and exceedingly low lows. And the reason is because you're trying to get as far away from the middle point as possible so that if anything else were to happen in your life, this is all built within us genetically. This is why teenagers do stupid shit. It's because they're really pushing the boundaries of what is not them. They want to get as far away from them as possible because they need experience. Because in order to gain that experience during those times, that is going to give them the tools that they need to be able to combat and fight against the real world. So after you figure out where your energy is, you have to shift your amplitude. You have to shift your frequency. And this can be done in a lot of ways, and it really depends on where you are. Some people are too high frequency. They have too much energy. ADHD, high anxiety, right? Neuroticism, neurodivergent, right? This is where they need to find that kind of mid-center. They need to find ways to ground healthfully. These people end up locking themselves away in their rooms reading books or playing video games all day because they can't handle the amount of energy that they have. They need to find equilibrium and balance. You don't want to be bored and content. You see how the middle part here is bored and content? There's a flip side to this, okay? It's not content and it's not comfortable, all right? It's satisfaction. It's satisfied. Not with the bare minimum. It's satisfied because you're putting in the energy necessary to create a good life. And that one's the hardest one to do. But again, if you need help with that, come reach out to me. I do one-on-one sessions and I work with people. And then finally, you want to maintain and amplify the new waveform. So first you diagnose and assess yourself of where you are. Nobody can really do that but you. Then you have to go out and seek help and find people who, or just do it yourself in balancing that emotional regularity. And then finally, you have to maintain that regularity. That's really the key here. So once again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you do like this video, comment down below. Please, share what you would like to see in the next one. Go check out all of my stuff. I have books, courses, online university, AI tool, etc. I love you guys. I can't wait to see you in tomorrow's video. Take care. Have a wonderful day.